Hi, everybody. It's nice to see so many people. You guys are the ones that care. So big hand for yourselves. Okay. All right, so we're going to do a panel here on the topic of tokenization. I don't think we need to do any introductions since everybody has met all of the people speakers before. And what I'd like to do is start out with some questions and some topics. And as you know from my presentation, I like to look at the at digital assets and tokenization from a wider perspective, not just from the collectibles and art perspective, although I don't want to put that down. That's extremely important for many different things, certainly for adoption. So the first question is going to be a two-part, and I'll start with you, Danny. The part one of the question is the easy one, and then part two of the question is maybe a little bit harder. What was your, Reto likes to talk about an aha moment when it came to digital assets and tokenization. Where do you see the opportunities for yourself, for markets, for let's talk and say for society? That's the easy part of the question, perhaps. And then I'd like to know, in your opinion, what is really the innovation we're talking about here? Because as we've heard, the idea of tokenizing something is actually not new. Digital certificates, right? We talked about that before. So where do you see the thing that makes blockchain-based tokenization different?
So the first part, I think it was 2018 when I saw corporate adoption happening actually to crypto. Honestly, three years before, I would have never thought that's going to happen. Now it's standard. Every bank is at least looking into it. And the second time this happened is now with the metaverse. It was just discussed. A lot of brands just make no regret moves and just say, well, we're going to try out whether it works or not. I think what really is a game changer in tokenization for me is that additional trust that you have. I mean, if you think of all the wonderful digital stuff that we have, including in games and stuff, these are all ephemeral, so they can be here and gone tomorrow, depending on, Second Life, for example, just disappeared one day to the other. Now it is at least, hopefully, stored on a good blockchain that's going to survive for years, and as long as you have your keys, that stuff is still there, retrievable and tradable. I think that's, for me, the number one innovation.
Yeah, that's interesting. That reminds me, I remember somebody, when we were doing the report, told me a story. I don't know if it was Second Life, but there was some sort of blockchain-based game, and the guy who made it just got bored of it one day and walked off and just didn't care. But because it was on the blockchain, the community could bring it back to life, because there it was. Yeah, okay. So
maybe a point to add is, what is the innovation? I think if you look at the portfolio of possibilities to do tokenization, it goes far beyond to traditional bankable assets. You can tokenize non-bankable assets and bring that into a deposit, which is a traditional wallet. You can give an LTV. This was not possible. If you look, for example, at a private bank, they were limited to some of the mainstream asset as you described it, and now you go far beyond, and you can give much better service to the client, and you can insource via this new tokens, this new kind of business. And I think this is very attractive also for the traditional business from time.
No, that makes sense, but again, just to play devil's advocate on that point as well, you could securitize anything already before the tokens. I mean, I work with a company called Gen2, Nicola's here from them, and they're specialized in securitization, right? So you can make the wrapper, and the question is, why is a blockchain-based wrapper more interesting? I know there's an answer, by the way. I'm not saying there isn't an answer, but I want to hear your thoughts on that.
To answer the thing before, shortly, the thing is, the really important moment is, what is the difference also to traditional IT in general from tech perspective? As far as I've understand, or as soon as I've understand that you could use blockchain as an underlying protocol for nearly everything, it was obvious to say why this is better than everything you have. Because you need, for every project, you have integration layer, implementation layer, you have an API here, an API there, you must do translation between programming languages and so on. Afterwards, if you have done your first transaction on the blockchain between completely different businesses, it is the case. Huh? So NFTs is a non-fungible stuff, FTs a fungible stuff, and with that you could nearly do everything that is today exists in IT. And that is clearly the benefit from a tech point of view to have it. It's a protocol that could speak every language.
So in essence, it's a shared infrastructure.
Yes, of course.
That nobody owns. Toni, you want to talk about your journey?
Please. So I told about my journey. What happened? Sorry.
What was your aha moment? Was the question?
The aha moment.
And,
The aha moment was really when I stepped into in 2017. It was a very nice place, and I was talking to a colleague of mine, and he said, "Here's something going on. You have to invest in an ICO." And I said, "What is an ICO?" And I asked for the white paper. I didn't buy because it was an ICO, and I learned what is intrinsic value. I didn't buy the coin, but in the white paper there was a very clever guy who was involved in worked together with the SEC. With the SEC, he had a quant analyst, and he was able to explain how we made the transformation into the blockchain and the possibilities at early stage. And I said, this will be a game changer, which will happen. We have 724. You can make, you can write a token to the blockchain. You can exchange it peer to peer. You're not limited to the traditional world. I think this was really something I said, wow, here's happening something different.
So I've got two questions in my mind. I can't decide which one. I'll take the one that's on the paper first. If you're looking at this space in terms of an investment, investment ideas, where would you be looking, both in terms of or maybe tokens and themselves, but also maybe investments in infrastructure and providers and stuff like that? Like where would you be looking? Danny, you want to?
As a VC that does VC
loaded question.
I have to. No, I mean, 5-6 years ago, in about corporate adoption time, 2017, I think I got a mandate from one of the Swiss banks. They said we want to launch a fund product. It has to be blockchain. So please help us find the right parts of that or contents for that fund. And I said, yeah, sure, super exciting. And I thought we were going to talk tokens and coins, but they said, well, it has to be listed. And back in 2017, there was jack shit listed. I mean, yeah, you could buy IBM shares or NVIDIA and then make a long story why this is correlated to blockchain, but it just isn't. So this is the clear case. If it's an exponential tech that is on the verge of going somewhere, you have to go early stage VC. And I think Animoca Brands is probably the world's best example how that can go down. But at the same time, I think tokens itself are very attractive. I mean, you place bets on some underlying protocols that going to fire up, the metaverse. Maybe some will, maybe some don't, and also maybe get into some assets, right? But I think this is as I call it, wild country, right? Anyone doing that should know this is maybe even more risky than just buying, an Ethereum coin or something, because that's already kind of very established and people understand it. All that stuff is very, very hard to grasp. Yeah.
Personally, I think it should be use cases that are useful on blockchain. So if you could solve it with a 3-minute Excel, you not should do it on the blockchain, so like that. So it's clear, as you have seen my presentation before, I'm more on the infrastructure level, technical level. So I clearly also go with our full group, Phoenix Technologies, in that direction. So we invest clearly in infrastructure and then very first layer to ensure that the use cases and the startups that come around the corner on the top are ready to use and ready to go into it. Because what we have seen is a lot of the startups come also into our environment. They have money for 1 year, they waste $1 million, and then afterwards they have absolutely nothing, And we try to organize it in a way that they could operate much more longer sustainable, because they should not spend the very first money in the first year to lawyers to figure out how this is compliant and so on. So they should really directly start with their case. And this is also beneficial for us as the infrastructure provider finally, because we not have to dive into that again and again and again.
True. I want to add that also standardization in the onboarding and helping in incubators or accelerators and go with mass adoption. And this is really helps because then you also understand and you have some kind of templates. When you do the analysis, we heard about that, you look at the management team, you look at the track record, you look how, what you're doing. And you also can ask the question, why are you using blockchain? Because it used to be very famous, and we lived that also when we did this analysis on these different kind of applications, and that it didn't make sense to use blockchain. It was driven by gaining investors only. And I think by streamlining these processes, helping with the standardization, I'm an advocate for SMEs to really support them to find the right money, to bring the balance between the projects and the buyer of project like VCs, whatever. This is something for the good we can achieve with this kind of concept. That's what I'm looking for.
Danny, maybe to you, do you see, and this is something I think we've talked about in this space for several years, but do you see still a chance that tokenization is going to change company funding? We had the ICO and then the ICO flop and all of that. Are we going to see a comeback of that kind of crowdfunding or?
Yeah, definitely, out of question. I mean, tokens are here to stay, right? We're going through ups and downs, but also AI technology has gone through ups and downs for decades, right? So there will be phases like now, and it just makes sense. I mean, just fast forward, let's say 10, 15 years, and let's take a 50,000 feet view. I mean, in this beautiful world, tokens make a lot of sense and blockchain makes a lot of sense. If you are the regulator, or even the regulator mandates you and you are an AI, how you want to gonna do your work? You will love blockchains because it's all there. You can analyze the data. It's hopefully immutable. So there's a lot of pros against versus like, oh yeah, we got a cloud and find somewhere the data on the cloud and we'll send you a link, right? That's much more, yeah, insecure and untrustworthy. So sooner or later, with the advent of AI, that will do a lot of the heavy lifting, even in regulatory. There's a good case for why blockchain makes sense and why tokenized whatever use cases make sense, because they become so much easier to analyze because they're standardized. Yeah. Look at the gaming industry. Today's gaming industry is like, yeah, anyone can start building a game like we did in the old C64, but I think once this stuff moves on the blockchain, at least the assets, the valuable assets, the house I was building in the game for putting in, I don't know, 100 play hours, I'd like to have that on the blockchain, ideally.
So do you guys see then a much more interoperable world coming up? You have your project and your companies, and that's been a dream of our space for a long time. Do you see this in the near future?
Not only in the future. So it's somehow already there. So first tries with all the bridges and stuff like that, interoperability. I mean, it's like the blockchain himself. So first try maybe not works, but it not prevents to do a second, third, fourth try. And I'm 100% sure that interoperability inside of the blockchain space in general is biggest topic anyway. So we could not expect that there is one blockchain and it's doing everything. We have maybe blockchains for this and that. Even different requirements. You not need 100,000 transactions for every case. You have different use cases, and therefore it's important that you're not to try to invent the wheel all the time. So you must build the next generation on the first generation, tech-wise. And finally, I'm pretty sure this is the biggest topic, interoperability. And then if we have that reached, then we have the metaverse communicating through different blockchains finally.
That's a very good point, and I think we talked about being lucky. I think we as a team, we are lucky because we are actually in a project of interoperability in different kind of corners. It's too early to comment on this, but follow the news, you will see it. And this makes it happen because at the end of the day, you need the application on top of a blockchain, which it makes it happen. Having said that, interoperability is also important. I saw some projects coming in around the corner which are a little bit on the CBD side. Also there is interoperability is quite important because you want to get liquidity from other currencies. So interoperability is really key.
So are we heading to a world where we have a real viable, large-scale metaverse economies and societies? And if so, what is that going to look like? Because you need that interoperability, right, to get that done.
I think the battle versus user created and big tech created is not gonna end soon. There's not be a clear winner, and we'll have multiple metaverses, and some people will like the metaverse of Meta, and others will say, no, I like the decentralization of the blockchain metaverse XYZ. But in the end, the winner will be decided just by the masses. So where the users go, it's just like a game. If a game gets downloaded by 50 million people and the other one by 500, guess who's the winner? It's exactly the same thing now with the metaverses. It's about community being built, people coming back, repeatedly coming back, and there will be a multitude of metaverses, and why not, right? I think it's going to be an open world, and transferability will be interesting also for the 3D assets. So I got asked that question a lot. If we create a Gucci bag in that metaverse, we can't use it in the others. Very simple answer. Guess who's going to do the conversion? AI. It's not going to be humans that have to, oh, this is the Gucci bag. It's very simple. I mean, AI is already with GPT-4 coming up. It's going to be a piece of cake type of work. You give it, you say, this is the Gucci bag, how it looks at this resolution. Now for this metaverse, we need it at that resolution. That's your available color palette. Go figure. And the AI is going to do that, in a whiz. And that's going to make those digital assets even more attractive, because then suddenly you can use it in multiple. And you got the token, and it's all secured, and you can put it on the, Steuerausweis, whatever. So it's all there, right?
No, I think it's even better. If you have like an NFT, an ERC 721 or ERC 20 token as a fungible one, you even not have to define what the other one is doing with it. So I could create a complete new application right now from scratch and define that if you own this ERC20 token, you could do something in my application. So, and this is also for me something I say is a clear advantage of this technology, because you even not to know what's in the future is. And this shows the difference to traditional technology is finally there. So your case you have described, we have an NFT today, this has a specific use case where you could use it, and tomorrow we could invent a new use case and reuse it. I mean, obviously cool, huh? So.
Yeah, and as it is growing and growing and growing. By coincidence, I got in touch with two metaverse projects, one of which is universities. Universities want to give some kind of brand and a quality, and they want to spread it globally, and also for a better world. It's not only gaming, so it will help you to gain access to the best-in-class universities in order to make your studies, even if you cannot afford. Another thing was in the US. I don't name the sports, but they are very active in sports, and they are the great guys, they're making the big business. And now I tapped in by coincidence where the smaller guys are leaving universities and they are on the way to make a big career. They start to do the same with royalty programs, and they make a nice living out of that. So these are also new business cases which you can start with, and this is amazing. And it's some kind of a clubbing style, everybody knows everybody, and these models are ready, and if you have the right person, they go for it. We had an interesting presentation in this respect as well. And I think this is a specific value if you can gather the right data and you own the data.
Okay, we've got time for two more questions, and I wanted to ask, before I get to your visions of the future, I wanted to ask, and I was thinking when you guys were presenting especially, and you talked about the whole process you had to go through, and most of it wasn't even tech, right? It was legal and compliance and all this other stuff. So what I'm interested in asking your opinion is, we've talked about a lot of this stuff for a long time. We're actually making progress. What are the blockers? What are you worried about? What's going to stay in the way or get in our way of realizing these visions?
Well, I said building the bridge, it's change. Nobody likes too much change. And we have seen it, it's always a little bit comes from the left, from the right. Be like a child, try to learn. Be open for the new things and don't close the door. This is very important. You have to be open-minded. And this is sometimes missing. And I think this is a challenge. Finding the right balance, we discussed it as well. I don't like legal and compliance either, but there is a history beyond it. Maybe in the past we were a little bit too lazy, and then now we have overdone it. And if you go back, it will happen again. So it's like a pendulum. And to find the right balance is difficult, but I think finding the right balance, and I think pro-business. You can stop everything or you can support it. If is the glass half full or half empty, I wish it would be half full and we help each other. That's the point.
So regarding to blockers, it has clearly shifted from layers, as I have showed before. So while we have talked 4 years ago, 5 years ago about blockers on infrastructure layer, signing algorithms and stuff like that, today if we have blockers, in my opinion no more really, the blockers are more on application side, use case side. So we need to, let's say, accelerate the environment that they understand the technology and that they could use it. But below there are no more blockers in my eyes.
Danny, what keeps you up at night?
Dumb regulation, but deliberately dumb. I'm not saying all regulation is dumb, but I was having a side discussion with Guido, and he reminded very rightfully that all these beautiful new things, whether it's crypto or the metaverse, has addiction potential. It can lead people into getting addicted or just toxic stuff happening. If you research what happens on Roblox with underage kids, and not everything is really nice. And regulation tends to sometimes over-regulate or regulate the wrong things, or be too passive and then come in and go really hard. So I really hope for smart regulation. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we need that. I mean, blockchain is a good example in Switzerland. I think we aced it, more or less. But compared to what's coming, that was easy. So what keeps me up, I'm still sleeping well, but I'm afraid, I'm actually scared of dumb regulation.
All right, last question, and we can go left to right here. What's next for you, for your projects? Where's your journey going?
The journey, I think the most interesting part, everything is ready. We have all the modules. And we are following a project kind of style. We are working and engaging with the best-in-class ecosystem partners. And we want to be different. How to subscribe it? We are the Swiss Cross. On the verticals, we have the best-in-class technology, from Phoenix Systems, a cloud for Switzerland, Linux One technology. You heard from Green and everything that, and now the stack. On the horizontal side, we will help with standardization, education with the right people, get business development, projects, and to make this pipeline alive. So we are not only selling a technical solution, we are we are building with our partners an ecosystem. That's the next step, building the ecosystem. So
for me personal, in general, after a long phase of research and doing these 2 projects globally rollout, I heavily dive currently into automation, so make it repeatable and make it more usable. So I have seen that you need to have 2-3 years and a big budget for doing it, so not everyone have that, let's say, environment. So what for me is clearly the main, let's say, challenge for next 2 years is clearly make it automated, so that everyone could use it, finally, on that scale.
I mean, professionally, I created a startup with friends, so we're in our year 2 now, finishing. And as all of you know, probably the tough years are not the first 3, but the years 3 to 5 or 6. I'm a 2 times failed entrepreneur, so my focus will be on not failing with this startup and just winging the next couple years. So looking for help with that. So anyone who wants to help in whatever capacity, very welcome. And personally, I have I think a big challenge coming ahead. So I have 2 wonderful twins, boy, girl. They're 4.5, and I can already see they're much more tech interested than probably I was at 4.5. And as a proud father, I'm asking myself, seriously, when's the right time to do what, right? I had pretty unlimited access to tech as a kid, but it's only started with 11 or something, 12. But now I see them, they're eyeing at the iPad, they want to do this, they see me at a computer, they want to press around. When can they go first time into virtual reality? You know, to Guido's point, I mean, virtual reality is amazing. When do I put them the Oculus Quest 2 on their heads? With 6, with 8, with 10, or now? I mean, he already saw the stuff lying around and pointed, and she comes and, oh, can I try? What is it? So this is challenging, and I'm also, if someone has good recipes, I'm happy to discuss.
I hear you. I remember my 4-year-old daughter got interested in my iPad, and she had been watching me, so I showed her, said, "Oh, look, this is the iPad, and this is how you go into it." And she said, "Oh, I know your code already." Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, I wish you all the best. Danny, 2 times failed in entrepreneur. They say in English, there's a saying, 3rd time's the charm. So there we go. Gentlemen, you're doing great work. Thank you very much, and thank all of you.
Great work, Tom. Great work, all the others. Thank you very much.